How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
You know, I'm talking and had my microphone muted. I am a professional, but some days you would question it. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the nation. The phone number, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, delighted to have you with me. Don't forget, text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. Get the show notes, the live stream, the podcast, and so much more, all the social media links. I want to begin this hour putting the president's broader foreign policy to some degree in picture for you. Here's what we know right now. The American Navy is largely parked in the Gulf of Mexico. We have a guided missile destroyer in the Persian Gulf, and we are routing an aircraft carrier and the ships with the aircraft carrier also to the Persian Gulf. It's going to take them some time to get from the South China Sea to be there. We're also being told, and when I say we, all of us are being told by media outlets, that the president was on the verge of an attack Wednesday. Iranian airspace was cleared, save for, curiously, 2 Chinese flights that landed. And at the very last minute, we're told the president canceled the attack. We don't know exactly what's going on. We do know now there are reports coming out of Iran that some former senior politicians, including the former president of Iran and his foreign minister, have been rounded up and are under house arrest by Khamenei, who looks like he is essentially now beginning to purge anyone who is not an absolute loyalist. But let's put a broader picture on this. I am on record opposed to the president's behavior on Greenland. By the way, I agree with the president on the need for Greenland. The Danes themselves in a report said the Chinese and the Russians are pushing to expand into the Arctic region, and that Greenland could be threatened by the Chinese and the Russians. There aren't a lot of people on the island. They could put troops on the island and overwhelm it pretty quickly. The president wants Greenland because I've got to correct myself here as well. I learned yesterday from Peter Meyer, used to be a member of Congress, was in the military, that we had an agreement with Denmark that we could put anything we wanted militarily on Greenland. And in the 1990s, the Danish government, with Bill Clinton's consent, decided to restrict that to one location on the island. I think, had the president approached this, not in the combative manner he did, and maybe he can still get it, the Danes would have said, okay, we'll revise this and you can put stuff on the island. Be a great job creation opportunity for an island that could use job creation. But I think essentially saying it's our island and we'll use the military to take it and you can't stop us, that's not a good look. We're a great nation because we're a good people, and that's not the behavior of a good people or a great nation. The Danes are our allies, and in fact, the Danes are very good allies. The Danes are not overrun to the degree a lot of other nations are. They have not been as open borders as some of these other nations in Europe. You know, my daughter is going to Falmer to the University of Sussex. She leaves on Tuesday. She'll be gone for the semester, and I see that she'll be very near Bristol, and Bristol has areas that are not particularly safe to go. And last year they had elected a guy from Bangladesh to be their mayor, and he could barely speak English. I was kind of stunned. I think the people in Britain have largely just given up. The Danes haven't given up, and we should be working with them. So I oppose the Greenland issue, but let's look more expansively. The president is trying to solidify the Western Hemisphere as our own. He has taken out Maduro, which completely disrupts the Chinese plans for South America. We have, as I'm talking right now, seized another tanker from the Venezuelans that was trying to skip through. We are expanding our presence in Central America and South America. We are, in fact, trying to disrupt the Chinese in South America. We've already been able to disrupt them at the Panama Canal. And we're also looking at trying to, get them out of the rest of Central and South America. The Chinese and the Russians have been there, along with the Iranians and Hezbollah. At the same time, we're working with Israel. We're continuing our relationship with Israel. We've helped undermine Hamas and Hezbollah. We've been helping the Lebanese government stand up to Hezbollah. We have worked to reestablish good relations with the Saudis that the Biden administration collapsed on, and J.D. Vance and his wife have been great emissaries to India, where the second lady of the United States is of Indian descent. What was so weird about it is that Kamala Harris was too, and never worked real hard to rebuild relationships with India. You would have thought the vice president of the United States, being half Jamaican, half Indian, she would have dived straight on in to helping rebuild relations with India, and she never did. And now here comes the vice president with the second lady of the United States being of Indian descent, trying to rebuild those relationships with the largest democracy on the planet. This from the Wall Street Journal. Ling Ling Wei. The U.S. ouster of the Venezuelan strongman Nicolas Maduro is forcing Beijing into a high-stakes recalculation of its ambitions in a region that looks like America's backyard again, said people close to internal discussions of the Chinese leadership. For years, China made inroads into Latin America, coaxing countries to abandon support for Taiwan with loans to build roads, ports, and rail links and rail lines, making significant purchases of commodities like soybeans and oil and mining metals such as copper. Maduro was its most important ally, an anti-American leader with oil resources, earning Venezuela the rare distinction of an all-weather partnership, China's highest diplomatic honor, and a status held by no other country in Latin America. Now, Beijing is no longer seeking to make new advances into the region in the near term. Instead, the discourse in China's policymaking circles has shifted towards a potential trade-off. If the Western Hemisphere belongs to the Americans, then the Taiwan Strait belongs to the Chinese. That calculation doesn't mean China considers the U.S. action in Venezuela a green light for action to take back Taiwan, a democratically ruled island that Beijing views as a breakaway province. Rather, U.S. action against Maduro by force bolsters China as it gives priority to its core interests, bringing Taiwan back under its control. Mexico recently imposed a 50% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles to align with Washington ahead of a high-stakes 2026 review of the North American Free Trade Pact. Panama has moved back into the U.S. orbit, withdrawing from Chinese leader Xi Jinping's signature Belt and Road Initiative, while allowing rotating stays for U.S. military personnel at bases near the canal. Even Honduras, which broke ties with Taiwan in 2023, is wobbling. The country's shrimp industry has largely collapsed after failing to find the promised high-value markets in China, leading to significant domestic economic strain. Now, President-elect Nasri Ashura, who was endorsed by Trump, appears poised to fulfill a campaign promise of switching back to recognizing Taipei. By December, as losses mounted in the region, Beijing issued a policy paper on Latin America, suggested it wouldn't give up its ambition there, a stance it can later use to extract concessions about Taiwan from Washington. According to people familiar with internal discussions, the goal is to secure the strategic foundation of China's Latin American influence. We're driving them out of Latin America. We're driving them out of Central and South America. There's no there at this point for China. The president has been very successful in resecuring the Western Hemisphere. The only wild card there is Cuba now. And Haiti, a collapsed regime that China is promising to give money to if the Haitians will turn towards China. To a degree, this does corroborate suggestions that there are those in the White House who see a tripartite system where China, Russia, and the United States divide up the world. We get the Western Hemisphere, and they fight over the rest of it. That is concerning. There, by the way, is a report circulated on social media today that the Chinese have been making incursions into Russia and taking Russian land. Now, let me find this one because it was Robert O'Brien who pushed this out earlier. Robert O'Brien, of course, served as an assistant to the president for national security. Russian bloggers are claiming China has now effectively taken over a large part of Russia's Far East. China is allegedly earning taxes from areas all the way to Vladivostok, with a large Chinese population being moved in there. Now, a large part of Russia's Far East was annexed by the Russian Empire in the 1860s under treaties with China. Russia is now trying to force Ukraine to agree to cede territory. It's very interesting. The Russians are concerned about the Chinese moving in towards Vladivostok, which the Chinese are calling the Hashan Way. This is extremely interesting dynamic. The Russians got into a bind by invading Ukraine, overstretching themselves, relying on the Chinese. There's been long distrust. If you've listened to this program for a while, I told you that an alliance between the Chinese and the Russians probably wouldn't last because the Chinese and the Russians, going back to the 1700s, hate each other. There's Russian-Chinese wars. The Russians and the Chinese have never liked each other. The Russians, as the Soviets, as the Russian Empire, were always the more dominant force in the last 200-300 years. The Chinese have coveted reclaiming territory from the Russians, and now Xi Jinping is doing it all the way to Vladivostok. And the Russians are starting to sound the alarm internally that this is not good, that Putin is ceding ground, and now Putin is trying to get Russians to move to Vladivostok. Why? Because in Vladivostok, there's a high population of native Chinese people who live there. So now China is starting to stretch itself out in that direction. So the Chinese and the Russians are divided. We're pretty united. We have rocky terms right now with NATO that could easily be repaired because of the threat. We're destabilizing Venezuela, which helps us against China. And again, Mr. President, if you destabilize the Iranians, you undercut Chinese oil access from everywhere except Russia. And the Russian oil access is already undercut because of monetary markets. Destabilizing Iran is the next link in the chain to destabilize the relationship between Russia and China. Why? Because you take Iran out of the picture, it makes the Russians, or makes the Chinese more dependent on Russian oil. But it also makes the Russians more dependent on Chinese technology at a time the Chinese are expanding into Russian, like actual Russian territory. It will foster more distrust between the two groups. The president has handled Greenland poorly, but can make ground up. In fact, the Danes are now today saying they want to work with us on it, which will be a big win for the president. The Chinese and the Russians are at each other's throat behind the scenes. China is now being shoved out of the Western Hemisphere. A lot of people want to complain about the president all the time. They never want to credit anything to the president. If they credit to the president, they say, well, it's not him, it's somebody else. They're crediting Marco Rubio with this stuff. I don't care who gets the credit for it. This is the Trump administration, and you can't doubt that there are some exceptions, and I admit those exceptions. But this is a pretty robust American foreign policy. You have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and others out there claiming they're America first, and America first means we must withdraw from the world. This is an America first administration where they're making the Western Hemisphere safe for America, and they're destabilizing the Russians and the Chinese and the relationship between China and Russia. All of this is pro-America. They won't be credited with it by the left or the media. The Democrats will never admit to it. But you got to admit, This is a far more grown-up, realist foreign policy from the Trump administration than anything we got from Obama or from Joe Biden, both of whom thought they can make peace deals and nuclear deals with Iran that just strengthen Iran. And right now, Iran is weakening, and hopefully the president will further engage there to weaken them further. Howdy, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. 877-973-7425 is the phone number should you wish to be on the program. Have you heard about Kamala Harris's house? She's bought an $8.2 million seaside mansion. Now, what's so notable about this is that a climate model issued by the Biden-Harris administration determined the beach, which was close to Harris's property, would be severely damaged by sea level rise, even under the model's most modest projections. Point Dume State Beach is where the house is. It's a short walk from Harris's property. They said it would be severely damaged even under modest climate change. The purchase, reported by the New York Post, according to the Free Beacon, calls into question Harris's earnestness when discussing the threats posed by what she called the climate crisis. Quote, "Our oceans are warming, sea levels are rising," she wrote. "Extreme weather is destroying our communities. We're poisoning the planet." She co-sponsored the Living Shorelines Act, which would earmark $50 million in federal funding to combat sea level rises. You know, is it Glenn Reynolds Instapundit who says he'll believe in climate change when the people who talk about it the most act like they do? All these people with their coastal homes claiming the oceans are going to rise. All the environmental activists who live down in Miami. They sure don't act like they believe their rhetoric. They really don't believe like they believe their rhetoric on climate change. So why should any of the rest of us believe the rhetoric of the climate change activists? I mean, here's Kamala Harris, God bless her, an $8.9 million house. That's a nice looking home. I'm jealous. Haven't won the lottery yet. Can't build mine, but building it right up because I want one too in Sea Pines on the beach in Hilton Head. But then I'm not somebody screaming about climate change. I digress. Let me tell you about Swiss America. Gold and silver is skyrocketing. By the way, the U.S. government today is stopping silver sales of some kind. With prices continuing to go up right now and supplies limited, Swiss America has been warning people about a secret war on cash with everything coming and just trying to control your use of precious metals, among other things. You need to report the secret war on cash. You get a copy completely free by calling or texting 800-289-2646. You just mentioned Eric, E-R-I-C-K. When you call, just text my name, Eric, to 800-289-2646. You can also go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric, SwissAmerica.com/ERICK. Look up Swiss America Trading on YouTube as well. They got a great podcast on what's going on, explaining the rise in precious metals and what the BRIC nations are doing to try to undermine American financial sovereignty. Just get this report. It takes 15 minutes to read. Call or text my name, Eric, to 800-289-2646. That's 800-289-2646. It's ERICK. Or go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric, SwissAmerica.com/ERICK. Message and data rates may apply. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, would be happy to have you. I played a clip yesterday afternoon in the third hour of the program. It was of Josh Hawley talking to a doctor. The doctor is a pro-abortion doctor and was testifying before the United States Senate on the safety of the abortion drug mifepristone. And Josh Hawley asked her a question, and I'm going to replay that for you because there's a larger point that needs to be made. And this is a lengthy cross-examination by Josh Hawley, the senator from Missouri. But you got to understand this. Particularly why she won't answer the question. You need to hear this exchange, and we really need to talk about it. And I talked about it briefly yesterday, but there's a larger point I need to make today. This, again, Josh Hawley and this pro-abortion doctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since you bring it up, why don't we just start there? Dr. Verma, I wasn't sure I understood your answer to Senator Moody a moment ago. Do you think that men can get pregnant?
I hesitate hesitated there because I wasn't sure where the conversation was going or what the goal was. I mean, I do take care of patients with different identities. I take care of many women. I take care of people with different identities. And so that's where I paused. I think, I wasn't sure where you were going with that.
Well, the goal is just the truth. So can men get pregnant?
Again, the reason I paused there is I'm not really sure what the goal of the question.
The goal is just to establish a biological reality. You just said a moment ago that science and evidence should control, not politics.
Absolutely.
So let's just test that proposition. Can men get pregnant?
I take care of people with many identities, but
can men get pregnant?
Many women that can get pregnant. I do take care of people that don't identify as women. That
can men get pregnant?
Again, as I'm saying,
let me just remind you. You testified to a moment ago. Science and evidence should control, not politics. Absolutely. So, can men get pregnant? You're a doctor,
agree.
I think.
Science and evidence should guide medicine.
Do science and evidence tell us that men can get pregnant? Biological men, can they get pregnant?
I also think yes/no questions like this are a political tool. And
no, yes/no questions are about the truth, doctor. Let's not make a mockery of this proceeding. This is about science and evidence, and I'm asking you. You know, the United States Supreme Court just heard arguments yesterday at great length on this question. This is not a hypothetical question. This is not theoretical. It affects real people in their real lives. And you're here as an expert, called by the other side as an expert. And you've been telling us that you follow, right, you're a doctor, and you follow the science and the evidence. So I just want to know, based on the science, can men get pregnant? That's a yes or no question. It really is, I think.
I think you're trying to reduce the complexity of a lot.
I'm not. I'm trying to get, it's not complex. I'm trying to get to an answer, and I'm trying to test, frankly, your veracity as a medical professional and as a scientist. Can men get pregnant?
I think you're also conflating male with...
No, I'm not conflating male and female. They're two different things. There's biological men and there's biological women. And I want to know, can men get pregnant?
What you were talking about is biological.
You're not going to answer my question.
Biological males.
This isn't hard, doctor. Can men get pregnant? Yes or no?
Again, I would be more than happy to have a conversation with you that is not coming from a place of trying to be polarized and push.
I'm not trying to be polarizing. I'm trying to ask. I think it is extraordinary that we are here in a hearing about science and about women. And for the record, it's women who get pregnant, not men. We are here about the safety of women and science that shows that this abortion drug causes adverse health events in 11% of cases. That's 22 times greater than the FDA label, another fact you haven't acknowledged, and yet you won't even acknowledge the basic reality that biological men don't get pregnant. There's a difference between biological men and biological women. I don't know how we can take you seriously and your claims to be a person of science if you won't level with this on this basic issue. I thought we were past all of this, frankly. I can't believe we're still here talking about this.
I am a person of science, and I'm also someone here who's here to represent the complex experiences of my patients, and I don't think polarized language or questions serve that goal. I don't think they serve the American people.
It is not polarizing to say that there is a scientific difference between men and women, and I want this to be clear and for the record. It is not polarizing to say that women are a biological reality and should be treated and protected as such. That is not polarizing, that is truth. It is also, by the way, the United States Constitution, which offers unique protections to women in a variety of circumstances as women. And your refusal to recognize women as women and men as men is deeply corrosive to science, to public trust, and yes, to constitutional protections for women as women.
That's Josh Hawley and Dr. Vera there. And there's a larger point I want to make here, other than it's absolutely insane she can't answer this. And I've got to tell you, a number of Democratic political operatives on Twitter yesterday acknowledged this is a very bad look now for the Democrats. That's right. A number of pro-trans Democratic political operatives yesterday were willing to acknowledge that it's not a good look for the left that they can't just say men can't have babies. men can't get pregnant. Why can't she say it? Because you know, and I know, she knows men can't get pregnant. You know and I know it, and she knows it. It is a basic biological fact. For those of you on the left who have concocted this theory, let me just finish this point and then get into it. There's a reason this doctor in a 5-minute questioning couldn't say she believes men can't get pregnant. Because if she were to tell the truth, it would destroy her career on the left. She works for the left. She works for progressive abortion advocacy groups. And they have bought in on transgenderism in large part because it's a profit center for them now. As abortion has been banned around the country in many places, it's a profit center. The transitioning of kids, giving them drugs to transition has become a profit center. She would lose business. We've seen this in the past with progressives who dared to speak up and say that actually they don't believe men can get pregnant, and they were tossed out of the movement. Was it Lena Winter, whoever, who was the head of Planned Parenthood, actually defied some progressive orthodoxy on transgenderism and was booted out? This woman is in a totalitarian structure where she works. It would be the same way if an Iranian regime leader were to come out and say, maybe we should find common ground with the protesters. That person would be destroyed. This woman would be ruined, her career over, if she spoke the truth. And that's not a healthy organization. It's totalitarianism. And, you know, there's actually a lot of data out there that progressives cannot recognize totalitarianism on their side. They don't believe they're authoritarian. They don't believe in their own totalitarian, authoritarian positions. They believe that their positions are true and virtuous. And if they're censoring people, you and I would look at that as totalitarianism. They look at it as virtuous and good. They can't impute to themselves the things that they claim about the other side. They simply can't see it, even though it's there. That's why she can't be honest. She knows what would happen to her career if she were honest. It's not that she believes men can get pregnant. She's a medical doctor. She knows they can't. But she can't say that because of the censorious totalitarianism of the progressive movement, particularly in the trans community. Now, for all of you here, particularly those of you on the left, are we animals or not? Do you believe in divine creation? I'm teaching Genesis 1 in my Sunday school class right now. God made mankind, raised us from the dust of the earth, stitched us together in our mother's wombs, made us male and female in his likeness and image. Do you believe that? Or do you believe we're animals as a product of evolution? If you believe it's a product of evolution, we're the class called mammals. We are mammals. There is not a mammal on planet Earth that can change its sex. Every single mammal on planet Earth is male or female. There is one that can get pregnant and one that cannot. We are Homo sapiens. We're in the hominid class. There is not an animal within the hominids that can change sex. There is always one that can get pregnant and one that cannot. If you believe that a man can get pregnant, you are arguing that we are somehow separated from the rest of biology, that we are somehow separated from the rest of the classifications within the animal species that we are. You are arguing essentially for some level of miraculous divine creation. You've cut God out of the picture. So what is it? Are we making ourselves? I mean, that's what you essentially, the language you're using is sex assigned at birth. Many of you want to use, and even that was a bridge too far for the ACLU, that with birth sex. You're not willing to acknowledge it's a mental health issue. You're not willing to acknowledge the science that you've got XX chromosomes and XY chromosomes, and the XY is male and the XX is female, and it's biology and genetics. You try to dismiss that. but you're essentially claiming that we are outside of the rest of animal species. You want to say we're a species, but then you don't wish to acknowledge us. We are in the kingdom animal, the phylum Chordata. We have a spinal cord. The class called mammal, the order called primate, the family called hominids, the genus Homo, the species sapiens. Within the hominid class, it's great apes. It's humans, chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans. None of them have any species that can decide that a male can become a female or that a male can get pregnant. They are male and they are female. The primates, an order of mammals. The lemurs, the apes, the monkeys, they have no class within the primates that can have a male get pregnant. Within the class of mammals, they have vertebrae, they have spinal cords, they have mammary glands. There are males and there are females, and no male can get pregnant. And only the insane people of the left are now unwilling to talk about the basic science. The people who tell us to trust the science don't trust the science. They don't trust the classifications. And this woman is a scientist. She is a doctor. She's either crazy or she's sane enough to know what would happen to her if she was honest. And that is actually what's going on here. A lot of the people who are willing to say things that are positive to the trans community don't really believe it, but it would impact their paycheck if they said so. It's like the Iranian regime right now. Most of the Iranian regime no longer believes in the fundamentalism of the Ayatollah, but they can't say it because they'll be purged from the society. The trans movement operates and the left operates like the Iranian regime. It's notable, by the way, that so many of the people on the left and in the trans community who are marching in the streets, the Queers for Palestine people, won't say a damn thing about the Iranian protesters. They will not stand up for them. Why? Because they're on the side of the authoritarian tyrants. They're on the side of Hamas. They're on the side of the Ayatollah. It is an insanity. It is a pathology. It is a pathology where lies become truth and truth becomes lies. And if they just tell the lie over and over and over again and bully everyone else is supposed to believe it's true. That's why this woman for 5 minutes tried to avoid answering Josh Hawley's question. Because she is complicit in propping up an authoritarian, fascistic regime of truth deniers on the left. And if she were to tell the truth, you know and I know she knows is true, that mammals, of which we are, primates, of which we are, hominids, of which we are, there's not a single one where the male can get pregnant. And she either must reject the science while claiming science, or she has to admit the truth. And if she admits the truth, she will be purged from the movement that funds her. So she would rather beclown herself in front of the Senate than tell the truth. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. I would like to issue warm birthday wishes to my friend Ben Shapiro, who has been fighting the good fight for quite some time. It's been just great to watch his platform grow and grow, and his voice and stature within the conservative movement grow. And it is just nice to have someone out there with his platform who on a daily basis is threatened by people, who is willing to still stand firm for truth. So happy birthday, Ben. There is word coming out from the New York Times today that the Israeli government has asked the Americans to stand down from the attack in Iran for now. This is breaking news. It is happening from the new reporting from the New York Times. And we are, well, I can just say I'm hearing confirmations of this from elsewhere. The Prime Minister of Israel has asked the president to postpone plans for an American attack on Iran, even as the Iranian government continues to grapple with the protests. Mr. Netanyahu spoke to the president yesterday. The same time, the president said he'd received information from important sources Iran was stopping the killing that appears to signal Mr. Trump was backing away. However, the president sent an ambiguous signal last June, even as he had largely made up his mind to order an attack on Iran. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Oman, and Egypt, all partners with Washington, have asked the United States not to attack Iran. Senior officials from those countries have been calling with this message for 2 days. They are afraid it could cause a greater regional conflict and disruption with their own people. Arab nations have been telling Iranian officials to not attack countries in the region if the United States does attack, however. And now Israel has signaled that it is not yet prepared for any reciprocity from Iran should the United States attack Iran. Israel believes it would be a target, and they would like to get better prepared for that, so they have asked the United States to stand down. The Pentagon has been rearranging troops in the Middle East as well. So an attack may be coming, just not yet as people get in position. However, the president told the Iranian people to get in the streets, seize control of their institutions, and help was on the way. And that is very Barack Obama. And this would be the second president of the United States to ask the Iranian people to risk their lives and then do nothing to help them. And so I hope the president still does something to help them. Y'all, I've got a tankless water heater from Rinnai. I love it. You will too. Go to talkingtankless.com and check them out. Ditch your tank of a water heater. Fills up with water. You pay the power to keep it warm at all times. The made in the USA Rinnai tankless water heater. It's like the size of about a carry-on suitcase. The water flows through. It heats up. It's phenomenal. You never, ever run out of hot water. I love it. Our kids don't fight over having hot water anymore. We can take showers at the same time and not run out of hot water. It's great. TalkingTankless.com is the website, TalkingTankless.com. The Rinnai tankless hot water heater gives you hot water. In our case, we got one. We had electric water heaters. Our power bill went down, and I can stand in the shower as long as I want and never run out of hot water. TalkingTankless.com is the website. You can go check out the Rinnai tankless water heater. Made in the USA, great product. We love ours. TalkingTankless.com.